When I turned 32, I realized that life is a series of accidents that you take for granted until they start to overwhelm you. I was a photographer, but not someone who shoots weddings or sunsets. My job is abandoned places. Not because it's fashionable or makes money, but because there's something alive in these ruins. Not in the sense of spirits or paranormal stuff, but in the sense that the walls remember. They absorb voices, footsteps, screams, laughter, tears. Sometimes, looking at the peeling paint or cracks in the floor, I caught myself thinking, what if it wasn't just dust, but the marks of someone's fingers grabbing the support, escaping from something? One day I came across an advertisement on the internet, the old Eclipse Hotel, built in 1927. It was closed in 1983 after a series of unexplained disappearances. The owner is ready to allow filming in exchange for photos for restoration. I don't know why I agreed. Perhaps because of the amount, perhaps because the word unexplained caught on. But what interested me most was something else. In the comments, someone wrote that dozens of letters addressed to no one had been found in the basement. Emails that no one has sent. When I arrived, the hotel looked like a beached ship. The brickwork was darkened with age, and the windows were boarded up with boards that had collapsed inside in places, as if the building was tearing itself apart. The lobby smelled damp and bitter, as if a fire had once smoldered here, but it had been smothered before it could burn out. I turned on the flashlight on my phone. The electricity had been turned off a long time ago, and looked around. An old reception desk with skin, a broken chandelier on the floor, a framed portrait of someone looking at me with an empty expression. There was a guest book on the counter, the pages of which were stuck together from moisture. I flipped through it, and on the last page I saw an inscription written in pencil, "They are still here. They're just waiting for you to hear them." I laughed. It doesn't make sense. Probably local teenagers or someone who was trying to scare the next visitor. But the laughter stopped when I heard a creak. It wasn't made of wood, it wasn't made of metal, it was the sound of someone slowly running a fingernail across glass. I turned around. No one. Only the door to the basement, closed but not locked. He went downstairs. The stairs creaked with every step, and dust rose in clouds, tickling his nose. There were racks of empty bottles, crates of rags, and a broken refrigerator in the basement. And in the corner there is a wooden box full of letters. The letters were of different colors, some with seals, others were just scrawled sheets. I took the first one that came to hand. "I'm sorry that I couldn't protect you. I heard you screaming in room 307. I didn't go because I was afraid. Sorry. You're Jake, the maid." The following, "Mom, I can't go out. The doors are locked, and the voices say I have to stay. Please come. With love, Emily, 1983. The letters were not older than 1983. All of them are dated from the last year of the hotel's operation. Some were addressed to relatives, others to no one. One of them was written in blood. He looks through the walls. He knows you're here." I felt a chill run down my spine. It wasn't mysticism. They were people. The people who ended up here felt trapped, writing things they couldn't say out loud. Maybe they were afraid they wouldn't be heard. Or they knew that their words would remain in this basement. Upstairs, the door creaked again. I left the basement, bolted the door, and went upstairs to my rooms. The first floor was empty, and so was the second. On the third floor, I found room 307. The door was ajar. Inside there is dust, fragments of a chair, a window with a crack. There is soot on the wall above the bed, as if someone tried to light a fire, but it was extinguished. I took a picture of everything, but as I was leaving, I noticed a corner of paper under the carpet. It was a newspaper clipping from 1983. Local maid Jake Harper is accused of murdering a girl who disappeared at the Eclipse Hotel. According to investigators, Harper held the victim in room 307, and then burned her body in a basement furnace. However, the body was never found. I went back to the basement and opened the oven door. Inside there are ashes and pieces of bone. Not human, of course. Rather, animals. But there was a small diamond earring nearby. I came back the next day. I took a tape recorder with me to record the sounds. I wanted to check if there were any voids or hidden rooms in the walls. When I turned on the device, it worked, but instead of the sound of wind or a drop of water, I heard a voice, "Don't touch my door." The voice was feminine, weak but clear. I looked around. In the corner of the room, behind the closet, I found a door that I hadn't noticed before. It led to a narrow corridor littered with sacks of cement. One of the bags burst, and inside I found a letter written in the same handwriting as the first one. "If you're reading this, then I failed." She didn't leave. She stayed. And now she's waiting for you. I returned to room 307. I sat on the floor, leaning against the wall. My hands were shaking. He wanted to leave, but something held him back. Maybe it's curiosity. Maybe it's a sense of guilt that I'm here, and those who wrote these letters have disappeared. An hour later, I heard footsteps. Not from above, not from below, but next to it. It was as if someone was standing behind the wall and shifting from one foot to the other. I got up, went to the wall, and knocked. Silence. Then there was an answering knock. 1 time. 2. 3. I didn't know what to do. Fear gripped my throat, but I couldn't leave. He took a hammer and started smashing the wall. The plaster was crumbling, exposing the wooden beams. There's another wall behind them. Brick. The old one. I hit it, and the bricks collapsed, revealing a niche. There was a woman's bag inside. It contains a passport in the name of Emily Smith, date of birth 1969, and a note, "I didn't want to die. I wanted to leave. But he didn't give it. Now I can't. Help me." The bag was dusty, but the contents were preserved. Letters, photos, a bus ticket to the city, dated 1983. I left the room and closed the door. I wanted to leave, but a thought was pounding in my head: why didn't she leave? Why did you stay? The next day, I returned with a shovel. I went to the basement and opened the oven. He began to dig in the ashes. Half an hour later, the shovel hit something hard. I pulled out the skull. Human. Burn marks on the bones. There are burnt remnants of clothes nearby. I fell to my knees. It wasn't Jake. It was Emily. The letters were not made up. They were true. Jake killed her. Burned it. But her fear, her pain, her desire to be heard, they remained. Not in the form of a ghost, but in the letters, in the sounds, in the way the walls absorbed her screams. I left the hotel at midnight. But before that, I took the last pictures, letters, a skull, number 307. The next morning, the owner of the hotel called me. He said that vandals had entered the building at night. All the emails are gone. The skull too. I've returned. Everything was empty. Even the door to the hidden room was gone, the wall was intact. I'm sitting at home right now, looking at my photos. They don't reflect what I've seen. They just show dust, ruin, empty rooms. But every night, when I fall asleep, I hear a whisper: "You promised to tell my story." It sounded not from the outside, but from the inside, as if I myself had started repeating the words I had read in the letters. I reviewed the photos, but they remained empty. No letters, no skull, no door to a hidden room. Just dust and ruins. A week later, I went back to the hotel. This time I took a dictaphone and a notebook with me. I wanted to write down everything I found so it wouldn't disappear like last time. The door to the basement was open. There is silence inside. The letterbox was gone, as was the oven. Instead, there is a bare concrete floor. I examined the walls, ran my fingers over the bricks. They were cold but dry. No sign of fire. I went upstairs to room 307. The door slammed shut behind me. The wall where I broke the brick partition was intact. There was no sign of the niche or Emily's bag. I sat on the floor with my back to the wall and turned on the recorder. I wanted to write down my thoughts, but instead I heard voices. Not a woman's whisper, but men's voices, muffled, fast, as if someone was arguing in the next room. I went out into the hallway. No one. The voices stopped. The next day, I went to the local library. The archivist, an old man with shaking hands, found me articles about eclipse from 1983. Turns out Jake Harper wasn't the only suspect. 2 other hotel employees were mentioned in the police reports, receptionist Robert Green and cook Mark Turner. Both went on vacation in the same month as the disappearances. Their addresses were listed, but the houses had long been empty. I found Green's house. It stood on the outskirts of the city, abandoned, with peeling paint. I found an old car in the barn behind the house, a 1980 Chevrolet. There was a dirty jacket with a rusted zipper on the back seat. In my pocket is a ticket from the Eclipse Hotel in the name of Emily Smith, dated 1983. When I returned to the hotel, I heard someone walking on the second floor. The steps were heavy and slow. I went upstairs. There was a man standing in the hallway. He was wearing a work jacket and faded jeans. His face was as gray as dust. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "I'm photographing a building for restoration," I replied, hiding the tremor in my voice. "This is not your story," he said. "Go away." He left without looking back. I couldn't see his face, just the back of his head and his broad shoulders. The next day, I returned with the camera. I wanted to film him if he showed up again. But the man did not return. But there was an envelope in the lobby. There's another letter inside. This time it was written in neat handwriting. They don't want you to know the truth. But she's here. Under the floor. You have to find her before they find you. I returned to the basement with a crowbar. He started lifting the floorboards. There is a pit under one of them. There's a suitcase inside. There were letters in it, the ones that had disappeared after my first visit. And one more item, Emily's little diary. In her diary, she wrote about fear. About how Jake watched her, how Robert Greene locked the doors so she couldn't leave, how Mark Turner brought her food, but never looked into her eyes. Last entry, they know I found the door. They know that I want to leave. But I will not die in silence. I was sitting in the basement, holding the diary in my hands, and I realized that this was not just a murder story. It was a conspiracy. 3 people who hid the crime, destroyed the evidence, erased the memory. And now they are gone, but their fear, their guilt, they remain. Not in the form of spirits, but in letters, in footsteps, in silence. When I went outside, the sun was already setting. In the distance, a 1980 Chevrolet was parked by the road. Robert Greene's car. The engine was running. I understood, they didn't leave. They were waiting for someone to come back. And now they knew that I had found their secret. I ran to my car. He started the engine. In the rearview mirror is the silhouette of a man in a work jacket. He was standing at the hotel gate, looking at me. I was driving down the highway, gripping the steering wheel so hard that my knuckles turned white. Robert Greene's car disappeared from the rearview mirror, but I could feel its presence, as if it was following me like an invisible shadow. Emily's diary was on the passenger seat, open to the last page. The words, "They know I found the door," turned into a rhythm that was pounding in my head. I didn't know who it was, Greene, Turner, Harper, or someone else, but I knew one thing. They didn't want the truth to come out. At home, I locked the doors, shuttered the windows, and put the diary in the refrigerator. Not because of the cold, it seemed to me that metal and glass would slow them down if they tried to take it away. I woke up at night to the sound of rain. The drops were tapping on the window like fingers scratching the glass from the inside. The bathroom mirror was fogged up, but there was an inscription written in water on its surface: "You're not leaving. You're part of history now." I wiped it off with my hand, but a minute later it reappeared, just like in room 307. The next morning, I went to the police station. The officer behind the counter, a young guy with red eyes, listened to me without interrupting. When I finished, he shook his head. "It's an old case," he said. "Everything is closed. No bodies, no evidence. Only emails that are most likely fake." "They're not fake," I replied, pulling the diary out of my bag. "Read it for yourself." He picked up the book, scanned a few pages, then suddenly froze. His face paled. "Where did you get this?" "What is it?" he asked softly. "I found it at the hotel. Did you know that Emily Smith was my aunt?" He closed the diary and handed it back to me. "She disappeared when I was 7. Mom said she was gone. But I always knew it was a lie." He looked at me, and there was something like hope in his eyes. "If you're right, if these people are still here, you have to finish what you started." I didn't have time to answer. There was a knock on the door. The officer got up to open the door, but I saw his face become a mask of fear again. There was a man in a work jacket standing outside the door, the one I'd seen at the hotel. He didn't say a word, just handed the officer an envelope. He took it, nodded, and closed the door. "This is the end," he told me. "Forget about it." When I went outside, the man in the jacket had already disappeared. I drove home, but stopped at a stationery store on the way. I bought a thick envelope, packed the diary in it, and sent it to the editorial office of the local newspaper. I wanted to make sure that if something happened to me, the truth wouldn't disappear. In the evening of the same day, my house exploded. I was in the car when I heard a crash. I turned around. The fire was devouring the roof, smoke was rising into the sky like a black tongue. I didn't have time to think. I got behind the wheel and drove away, not knowing where I was going. 2 days later, I found myself in the city where Mark Turner, the chef from the hotel, lived. His house was empty, but I found a box of photographs in the basement. They show people at the Eclipse Hotel. Emily is one of them. Her face was smeared with black marker. On the back of one photo it says, "She knew too much." I had to remove it. I took the photos and left, but I bumped into Turner on the doorstep. He was older than in the police photos, but his eyes remained the same, empty, like those of a man who had long since stopped feeling. "You don't understand," he said. "We were protecting them." "Protecting who?" I asked. The people who came to the hotel. They were paying for the silence. For the opportunity to do things that cannot be done in everyday life. And Emily? She shouldn't have been there. She didn't pay. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. I wanted to hit him, but he just smiled. If you want to finish this story, he said, go to the library. Ask the archivist. I went back to the library, but the old man who helped me earlier wasn't there. A woman in her 40s was sitting in his place. He quit, she said. Yesterday. He didn't leave anything? Just that. She handed me an envelope. Inside is a list of names. The names of the guests of the Eclipse Hotel in 1983. Among them are politicians, judges, and businessmen. The names I learned from the news. Now I get it. They weren't just hiding Emily's body. They were hiding the truth about what they were doing in this hotel. And those three, Harper, Green, Turner, were just part of a system that allowed these people to remain in the shadows. I went to the hotel. He wanted to take the letters, the skull, the bus ticket, anything that could prove it. But when I entered the basement, it was empty. Even the dust has disappeared. There was a note on the wall where the letterbox used to be. You can't stop them. They're already here. They're everywhere. I got in the car and drove away. Now I do not know what to do. The diary went to the newspaper. The photos are in my bag. But every time I stop, I see a 1980 Chevrolet in the rearview mirror. He's not stalking me. He's waiting. They know that I've found their secret. And now they know that I'm not leaving. As I write this, there's a knock on the door. I heard the knock a second time. 3 short beats, as if someone was counting the seconds between heartbeats. The house was quiet, too quiet. I was standing in the kitchen, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. The glass of the window was shaking in the wind, but there was only darkness behind it. No cars, no headlights. Just trees swaying against the background of the moon. I went to the door. His hand hovered over the lock. There was no sound outside. Just the silence that weighs on my ears. I turned the key and opened the door. A man was standing on the porch. Not in a work jacket like the one at the hotel, but in a black coat that clung tightly to his body. His face was hidden by the shadow of his hood, but I could see his hands, long fingers covered with scars, as if he had been working with a knife for years. You shouldn't have come back, he said. The voice was calm, but there was something else in it. Warning. Who are you? I asked, not moving. It doesn't matter. It's important that you stop. And if I don't stop? He didn't answer. He just held out his hand. There was a photograph in the palm of his hand. I took it. The picture shows me standing at the entrance to the Eclipse Hotel. The date on the back is today's date. We're watching you, he said. Every step. Every word. I looked at him, then back at the photo. There's a car in the background. A 1980 Chevrolet. Did you kill my house? We warned you. And Emily? Was she warned too? He was silent. She didn't want to leave, I said. You made her stay. No, he replied. She knew too much. And you burned it. We didn't want to. You're a liar. I threw the photo in his face. He didn't even try to catch her. He just looked at me, as if assessing whether it was worth continuing. Then he turned around and walked away, disappearing into the darkness as if his body had disappeared into thin air. I went back inside, locked the door and went to the garage. There was an old toolbox under the floor. I opened it and took out the pistol I had bought at the beginning of all this. He was lying there, wrapped in a rag, cold and heavy. I checked the clip. 5 rounds of ammunition. The next morning I went to the newspaper office. I wanted to make sure that Emily's diary got through. The editor, a young woman with dark circles under her eyes, greeted me with concern. Did you get it? I asked. Yes, she replied. But we can't publish it. Why? We got a call. They said that if we do this. What? What will they do? She didn't answer. She just handed me an envelope. Inside is Emily's diary. Whole. No damage. Did they bring him back? I asked. This morning. Without explanation. I took the envelope and left. In the evening of the same day, I received a letter. Not to the post office, but to the newspaper drawer at home. A white envelope with no address. Inside is a piece of paper. Just one word, last warning. The next morning, I found my car wrecked. The headlights are smashed, the wheels are cut off. On the hood is an inscription scratched with a key, "You will not leave." I moved into a motel. Room 17. Dirty walls, a bed with a sagging mattress, the stench of mold. I put the diary under my pillow and lay down, holding the gun in my hand. I woke up from the cold. The door to the room was open. The air smelled of smoke. I sat down on the bed. The gun was gone. Emily's diary was on the table, opened on the last page. The words have been changed. Instead of, "They know I found the door," it now read, "Now you're part of history." I ran out of the room, throwing the key on the counter. No one stopped me. In the car, I stepped on the gas, not knowing where I was going. A few hours later, I found myself at the river. The place where the bridge used to be has now turned into ruins. I stopped and got out of the car. The water flowed slowly, as if it carried something heavy. I walked along the shore. My feet sank into the mud. In the distance, the silhouette of a man. He was standing at the edge of the water, with his back to me. I came closer. It was Turner. He didn't turn around. "Did you find them?" I asked. "They found you," he replied. "What do you mean?" "You can't leave now." "Why?" He finally turned around. His face was covered with cuts, and his eyes were bleary, as if he hadn't slept in weeks. A few hours later, I found myself at the river. The place where the bridge used to be has now turned into ruins. I stopped and got out of the car. The water flowed slowly, as if it carried something heavy. I walked along the shore. My feet sank into the mud. In the distance, the silhouette of a man. He was standing at the edge of the water, with his back to me. I came closer. It was Turner. He didn't turn around. "Did you find them?" I asked. "They found you," he replied. "What do you mean?" "You can't leave now." "Why?" He finally turned around. His face was covered with cuts, and his eyes were bleary, as if he hadn't slept in weeks. I was sitting in the car, holding Emily's diary in my hands. The pages were blank except for one phrase. "Now your history." My pulse was pounding in my temples, as if my heart was trying to escape. I knew it wasn't a metaphor. It was a promise. I went to the hotel. Not to hide, but to end it. There was no plan, just a thought: if they want me to become a part of their story, then I will make it known. The door didn't creak when I entered. The floor didn't crack underfoot. Everything was too quiet. It was as if the building was waiting. I went up to the third floor, to room 307. The door was open. Inside there is dust, ruin, emptiness. But on the wall, where there had been soot from the extinguished fire, there was now a new inscription. "No soot. Blood. It's fresh. You're back. You know what to do." I looked around the room. There is a small gap under the bed. I knelt down, put my hand inside and felt something hard. It was an envelope. There's a letter inside. If you're reading this, then you've chosen to stay. Like me. Like them. We're here. We're waiting. You have to write your letter. They'll be waiting for you. How you've been waiting for us. My hands were shaking. I pulled out my notebook and pen and started writing. I wrote about what I learned. About a system that allowed powerful people to hide their crimes. About how 3 hotel employees became a part of it, how Emily got trapped, how they tried to destroy the evidence, but couldn't. When I finished, I heard footsteps. More than one person. Several. They walked down the corridor, slowly, confidently. I put the letter in an envelope, put it in my bosom and stood up. The door swung open. They were standing there. A man in a work jacket. Turner. Green. And another one I didn't know. Their faces were masks. Not malicious, empty. It's like they stopped being human a long time ago. "You're not leaving anyway," Green said. "I know," I replied. They came over. I didn't resist. He did not ask for mercy. I just looked into their eyes while they tied my hands. They took me to the basement. Back to where the oven used to be. There was an old camera there now. Next to it is a mailbox with letters. My letter was already there. "It's not over," I said. "Someone will find it." "He'll find it," Turner replied. "And we'll become a part of it." The last thing I heard was the sound of a door closing. The last thing I felt was fire. But even in the flames, I knew it wasn't over. Someone will find my letter. Someone will hear my voice.